me flipping some switches.
Flashing the lights.
That was me flipping some switches.
Oh, were you okay? I was like, well, they flashing the lights. Let's get in here. Yeah.
Morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
Good. How are
Sit
you?
right
Good.
here. So, yeah. Oh. Sit back here where it's cooler.
That's the news guy from Time, right?
Yeah. Yes, he's on our board now.
Where is he?
Yeah. Yeah.
What's his name?
Lane Lucky. Yeah, he's
I
been
watch him every morning on TV, so I know.
he's a very big asset for us. Very big. He loves NASA. He said he wanted to be an astronaut, but he didn't his I don't know, he couldn't what was it? Some math he wasn't good at, and he didn't make the cut. And I said, we went down to an event down at NASA, and he wrote to me, and he said, I didn't realize there was other things besides being an astronaut with NASA. And I said, well, yeah. And he said, oh. I said, so you telling me if you got a job down here, you'd leave the news? He said, in a heartbeat. He loves it. He's from Lake Charles.
Okay.
And his alumni is Northwestern. So he's kind of a homeboy, really. He got a good job at the TV station, and so he's been a big asset. So I got a lot going on with me right now.
What you got?
Well, you know, I'm cooking besides all that, and I came up with this harebrained idea to do this women's conference in March.
I said, that looks like it's going to be a
That thing blew up on me. I had this, I've been praying about it because I had a bunch of women go with me to Feminar in Longview. For 30 years I've been going there. And they all of a sudden just shut it down. And I think what happened was the old guard was passing it to the new guard, and the new guard was taking it in a different direction than the old guard wanted. Is that control thing. Anyway, so they just quit it. Or maybe they just didn't have enough of the new guard to run it. Anyway, so, and I had a bunch of women from here going, and they're all going, what are we going to do now? What are we going to, because women love to do that. And I said, so I started praying about it, and the Lord said, start one. So I said, okay, here we go. I talked to a couple of ladies, and I said, I'd like to get all the churches involved. I don't want it to be one church, one denomination. I'd like all the Christian women coming together. And I said, let's have a little meeting. It was like 40 women.
I saw that day. The one day I was sitting up there in the office, I looked and saw all these ladies coming out of the deal over there. I said,
That was the worst meeting I ever tried to have. Worst meeting I've ever tried to have. Because it was so loud, and we were stretched out in there, and I was running from this end trying to talk, and then running down here trying to, and I was just.
you almost need to move over in that other room.
Well,
You
then
would have thought about it.
Well, I tried to get it to them, but they said it cost a deposit, and I was like, what? It's for, I don't have, I'm not gonna do that. So anyway.
They've never they've never charged us a deposit.
Well, Chris said he wouldn't, but it was Cliff, and he wasn't giving it up. But anyway, Chris said next time just tell him to call me. I want y'all to do it. And I said okay. But anyway, this is what I asked each church in the women bring 3 or 4 songs for her church. One day, start at 9 o'clock in the park. And then we're gonna have a break for lunch, salads and water.
This is nice. Well, no, I just like their sweatshirts. I'm from Pittsburgh. Oh, really? So, yeah, I love Montreal. I do business with a company in Montreal. Good people.
Okay.
Hey, Joe, how are you?
Canadian.
I called you one time, you called me, and I called you back, I didn't get you. So I guess everything worked out okay. Cause he ain't mad, he's killing, he's a moody person sometimes. He gets caught sort of in through, you know, with his wife and everything.
Small town near Hemphill. He does a lot of research in the
Oh, you
glaciers.
did? Good.
He worked with the
Oh, watch out.
Actually, I called Don.
It was he helped set up a base for training
Sure they didn't want to come through the-
up on,
That Don,
this is Miles Brown, Miles.
you're not retiring at the end of the year. He says, Don, what? Oh, he didn't know? I said, I've been trying to tell you, you gotta learn to do this stuff.
Why can't I think of his name right now?
Well, just come on, we'll make more money and.
Yeah, he was pretty, they found an area with the ground
I said, you
trees and
think
all,
that's
they found
what
it.
it's made? And I was I said, if it was turned the other way around, you think you would stay another year for me? I said, no, no, he doesn't. It's like he's scared to death.
This is like church on Sunday, everyone's in the back of the room.
I guess we sit up front, huh? Somewhere. Oh, where you want us? Over there, or here? Over there? Come over here with me. He's gonna be up there, so Brian will be.
Probably after lunch, I'll leave. I gotta go to the hospital.
Okay, so I'll leave.
Get on the plane. Go in Washington, D.C. Be there ready to go till Tuesday.
It's right there.
Good morning. It's good to see you all this morning, and welcome to the 17th Memorial service that we've had. It's so good, and I appreciate everyone being here today, and I know that the committee does as well, as we seek to remember those who were lost in the tragedy many years ago, and I just, again, I welcome you here. Whether you're friends or family or live in the community or visiting in our community, it's so good that you're here. It's a 17th year since the disaster, and many of us recall that morning all those years ago, and at that time we didn't know what was happening, but we soon found out, and then Hemphill changed at that point, and for a long time, and you know, it's a day that we gather together to mourn the loss, but also to celebrate the lives of the people who were lost during that time. So again, I just want to thank you for being here, and I would ask you now if you'd stand, and we'll have the invocation, and then we'll say the pledge of allegiance to the American flag. Would you join me as we pray? Our Father in heaven, I just thank you for this day, and I thank you for each one in attendance as we seek to remember those heroes who were lost many years ago. And I just thank you that we're able to keep their memory alive, and I just pray that you'll bless the families that had the loss, and that you'll just bless the friends and the ones who worked with them and all. And I just thank you for people who are willing to sacrifice for our country and for our freedoms and for this for NASA and the space program. Father, I just pray blessings on each one. And I just thank you and praise you in Jesus' name. Amen. Would you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance now? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. We have the we're going to, later on, we're going to have a word from the memorial, the museum committee, and, but before we get to that, there are other things that we're going to do, and the Sabine County Memorial Committee was formed by County Judge Jack Lee. And it was a committee that was comprised and is comprised of local citizens and individuals who were a part of the local recovery efforts in Sabine County. And the goal of the committee is to establish lasting memorials to the Columbia crew and to the two who perished in the recovery efforts. The committee has maintained a great relationship with NASA and with the families over the time, and so far the projects of the committee have been resurfacing the star. You've seen it down at Dairy Queen. That was as a matter of fact, if you've not seen it, those of you may be visiting from out of town, if you'll go down to the Dairy Queen and there is a star, a big round monument out front. It's got a couple of granite markers, and so I hope that you'll take time to go look at those. The star was designed by Ellen Mills in cooperation with these two ladies here, Belinda Gay and Marcia, and so it would be worth your while to go down and look at that. Also, Chad Gay and Roger Gay did the tile work on it, and we appreciate them as well. There are also granite markers there, and this committee has had a memorial like this every February 1st since the disaster occurred. And again, the memorial committee has a great relationship with NASA and has sought their input on various projects and things that we've done. And so we just thankful for the committee for the work that they're doing. A couple more projects that are in the works. The nose cone project, and have a memorial out where the nose cone was found just outside of town, and possibly an interpretive trail, and hopefully these things over time with funding and things we'll be able to get those done. The Patricia Huffman Smith Museum is celebrating its 9th year. Is that correct? I believe it's the 9th year. As a lasting memorial to the lost, and we'll hear more from them after a while. One of the things that we do every year is we read Joshua 1:6-9, and the reason we do that is because this is the passage of scripture that the commander of the Space Shuttle, Commander Rick Husband, read as right before liftoff, and he also read it to the crew, or with the crew, a couple of days before the liftoff. And so to honor them and also to honor the scripture, we'll be reading that this morning. And so you've got a program, I think, and if you'll refer to that program, you'll be able to read along as we do this. So here it is on the screen, so you don't have to have a program. But if you would stand with me and we'll read this. And after that, we'll have a moment of silence, and then we'll continue with our program. So Joshua 1:6-9, be strong and of good courage, for to this people you shall divide as an inheritance the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous, that you may observe to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Do not turn from it to the right hand or to the left, that you may prosper wherever you go. The book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, that you may observe to do according to all that is written in it. For then you will make your way prosperous, and then you will have good success. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and of good courage. Do not be afraid, nor be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. Let's have a moment of silence now. Thank you. Thank you. You may be seated. At this time, I'd like to honor our fallen heroes by sharing some of their personal history with you. Rick D. Husband was a commander of the STS-107. He's a 1975 graduate of Amarillo High School. 1980, he received a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering. In 1990, a Master of Science in Mechanical Engineering. He was selected by NASA in 1994, and he was Chief of Safety for their astronaut office. He was pilot of STS-96 in 1996, and he logged more than 235 hours in space. William C. McCool was a pilot at STS-107 in 2003. He's a commander in the U.S. Navy. In 1983, he received a Bachelor of Science in Applied Science. In 1985, the Master of Science in Computer Science. In 1992, the Master of Science in Aeronautical Engineering. He was selected by NASA in 1996. This was his first space flight. Michael P. Anderson was Mission Specialist 3 and Payload Commander of STS-107. He was Lieutenant Colonel in the U.S. Air Force. In 1981, he received a Bachelor of Science in Physics and Astronomy. In 1990, he received a Master of Science in Physics. He was selected by NASA in 1994, and he flew on STS-89 in 1990. He logged over 211 hours in space prior to the STS-107. Kupna, or K.C. Chawla, was Flight Engineer and Mission Specialist, FAA Certified Flight Instructor. In 1982, she received a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Engineering. In 1984, Master of Science in Aerospace Engineering. Got a doctorate in Aerospace Engineering in 1988 and was selected by NASA in 1994. She operated the prime robotic arm on the STS-87. She logged more than 376 hours in space prior to the STS-107. David Brown was Mission Specialist 1 on the STS-107. He was captain in the U.S. Navy. In 1978, received a Bachelor of Science in Biology. 1982, a doctorate in medicine. Selected by NASA in 1996, this was his first space flight. Laurel B. Salton Clark was a mission specialist on the STS-107. 1983, received a Bachelor of Science in Zoology, and in 87, received a doctorate in medicine. Selected by NASA in 1996, and this was her first space flight. Ilan Ramon, Payload Specialist in STS-107, a colonel in the Israeli Air Force. In 1987, received his Bachelor of Science in Electronics and Computer Engineering. 1997, was selected by Israeli Air Force. 1998, was approved by NASA, and this was his first space flight. Then we have the two who perished in the recovery efforts. Charles Krennic, aviation specialist for the Texas Forest Service. In 1973, he graduated from Bay City High School. 1977, began working with the Texas Forest Service. In 1984, was a recipient of the Director's Award for Field Technician. In 1989, received Director's Award for Team Effort. And in 2003, of course, he assisted in the Columbia recovery efforts. And then Jules F. Buzz Meir, Jr. was a lead pilot for Papillon Airways Incorporated. In 1964, the graduate of Rain High School. In 67 to 71, served in the U.S. Army. In 1974, got a degree in business with a minor in accounting. He logged over 1,000 combat hours while serving in the Army. In 1979 to 1989, served in the Alabama Army National Guard. Served 18 years as flight instructor for Department of Defense, and the last 7 years as lead pilot for Papillon Airways, and also assisted in the recovery efforts. All of these, as you can tell, were quite accomplished, and we do pay tribute to them and to their accomplishments today. Our guest speaker today is Brian Ewenson, and he had quite a long drive. He'll probably tell you about that, and we're very fortunate to have him with us today. And let me tell you a little bit about him. Brian Ewenson is an aerospace educator, consultant, and professional speaker on aviation and aerospace. He was born in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, and speaks multiple languages, maybe even East Texan, huh? He has presented to more than 250,000 people in the past 20 years at schools, museums, space centers, community groups such as Boys and Girls Clubs and Scouts and Guide, as well as at aerospace and education conferences and for corporations, with audiences ranging from age 4 years to 94 years. Brian has worked for the Canadian Space Agency, Lockheed Martin Space Day, and Challenger Learning Centers. He has designed, developed, and flown student and corporate experiments on the shuttle and space station, and subsequently trained astronauts to do his work in space. He has hosted more than 20 astronaut appearances in museums, space centers, and conferences. And Brian was the conceptualizer, designer, and technical writer for Spaceport Calgary, the world's first air and space museum located at an international airport. He has served as Director of Education at the Calgary Aerospace Museum in Pima Air and Space Museum, Spaceport Sheboygan, and as Executive Director for the Challenger Learning Center of the Southwest, Challenger Learning Center of Wyoming, and Spaceport Sheboygan. He is currently working at Spaceport Sheboygan as on a consulting contract as Executive Director. Brian also served as a certified flight attendant for the Nation Air Canada aboard DC-8, 61 to 62 and 63 series aircraft, Boeing 747 and 757, operating charter flights in Europe, the Caribbean, and domestic destinations in the early 1990s. Brian has attended and or presented at 24 of the 25 ISSEC and SEEC conferences at Space Center Houston, and was the recipient of the 2010 Cherry Brindley Aerospace Educator of the Year Award. He has co-authored Hangar Flying, an up-close and personal look at airplanes, and The Thrill of Flight. He has been a volunteer with the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics, that's AIAA, since 1997. He's got a background in astrophysics, American history, and political science, and elementary education from John Abbott College and McGill University in Montreal, Canada. So we have before us today a quite accomplished man, and we're certainly happy to have him here. Would you welcome Mr. Brian Ewenson?
Just a moment to switch over the
PowerPoint here.
All right, thank you so much for inviting me out today. As alluded to in the introduction, my name is Brian Ewenson. I'm an aerospace educator by trade, but also will give you a little bit more of my background. I actually was incredibly honored to actually have an experiment on board Columbia, which came down in Nacogdoches, Texas. We reflew it a couple of flights later. We'll explain about that. But had the incredible honor of actually training this crew in operations of our equipment. We all know about the accident, so we're really, what I want to key into today is talking about the astronauts. Getting the chance to work with my heroes my entire life was an incredible honor. So we're going to talk about ordinary people who have actually done extraordinary things. One of the things you find out with the astronauts is they're just regular folks like us, but they get to do incredibly extraordinary things out there. How I got involved in the space program, Canada did not have astronauts when I was growing up. My mom and dad took my twin brother and I at 4 years old on a trip from Montreal, Quebec down to the Kennedy Space Center. These two little rugrats here at 4 years old were so excited by rocket ships and airplanes that we told our parents when we grew up we wanted to work with either airplanes or rocket ships. No one laughed at us, but with a lot of help from mom, dad, family, friends, and in particular the teachers in our lives, we were able to achieve our dreams. My twin brother, who's 5 minutes younger than me, not that twins are competitive, and he knows it. He is an Air Canada Airbus 330 captain. He gets to fly all over the world. I wanted to fly a lot higher, go much faster, be on time and not lose your luggage, so I decided to actually join the space program. I started with the Canadian Space Agency in Saint-Hubert, Quebec, and after a couple of years of working there, NASA really liked my work, and they said, how would you like to move to a place where it never snows? We'll pay you in American dollars, we'll help you with your immigration visa, and you get to work with your heroes and launch stuff into space. My bags were packed in all of about 30 seconds, and it's like, Houston, be careful, the Canadians are coming. So I moved down to Houston, Texas, where I worked in the Space Shuttle program for close to 20 years, training astronauts. Trained astronauts in operations of the Space Shuttle, in rendezvous and proximity operations. When I speak in particular to upper elementary and high school students, they're like, when am I ever going to use this math in the real world? Well, this is the real world where you have to know all of this stuff. Being a proud Canadian first, now a dual citizen of the United States and Canada, I got certification in telerobotics, operations of the Canadarm, teaching the astronauts how to use the Canadian remote manipulator system. And towards the end of my career, I wanted to actually try something a little bit different. So I was part of a department called ECLIS, Environmental Control and Life Support Systems on Spacesuits. So I got to test and design spacesuit components to ensure that astronauts were safe when they went out on spacewalks. Now, one thing about working in the space program, shuttle program in particular, we have over 20,000 approved acronyms. I can speak to you guys in 3- and 4-letter words all afternoon. ECLIS has more S's than the word Mississippi. Now, getting to work at NASA, I was lucky enough to actually work with over 70 different astronauts. These folks really actually became my friends. Some of the folks here you may recognize. This good-looking gentleman here, when I worked for Lockheed, was my boss. Former U.S. Senator and astronaut John Glenn. And how we see that these folks are truly ordinary folks, and what really grounded me in my career is when I first met John Glenn in 1992, I was like, Colonel, Senator? He's like, just call me John. I'm like, dude, you're in the history books. There's no way I can call you John. Growing up in a proper family, we settled on Sir for quite a while before I called him John. But what grounded me in my career in the space program was that while we were sitting down and across the table he said to me, we are equals. You may see me in the history books, you may see all the things I've accomplished, but you are one of the 43,000 people at NASA that if you don't do your job, we can't make it to space and make it back safely. So being part of the NASA family really grounded me with the statement that we are equals. We are not better than you guys. All you technicians, all you scientists and engineers are vital components to our operational missions, getting to space and getting back safely. I've been lucky enough to work with a couple of the men that walked on the moon. Also the original 7, Wally Schirra, I was with him about 2 weeks before he passed. John Young, the astronaut's astronaut, flew 6 flights, 2 Gemini flights, 2 Apollo flights, and 2 Space Shuttle flights. Here I actually worked with Colonel Rick Husband on his first flight on STS-96 with our Canadian astronaut Julie Payette, who is right now our Governor General for the entire country of Canada. We actually brought them, when I lived in Calgary, to the Calgary Stampede, and they had this ride that was sort of like a reverse bungee where they launch you up. And, both Julie and Rick got to ride it, and everyone's like, "No, are you scared?" Like, we just rode the space shuttle, you know. There's not many amusement rides that are going to really bother us here. So getting to work with my heroes really grounded me in my lifelong career. But as I say, what I really want folks to know is our astronauts are just regular people, folks that do extraordinary things. We're a family of ordinary people who teamed up and did something extraordinary. I was lucky enough to spend 20 years in the Space Shuttle program, but to give you a sense of the size of the vehicle, it's the same size as a building with 19 floors. It weighs 4 million pounds. The external fuel tank is what we like to call at NASA the world's greatest coffee thermos. 2.5 million liters of gallons of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen. Every 25 seconds during our 8.5-minute ride to orbit, we'll use the same amount of liquid fuel as that of an Olympic-sized swimming pool every 25 seconds. Wow. 2 solid rocket boosters on either side. Solid means the fuel is hard like the table. Once we turn those on, we cannot turn them off. As the astronauts say, once the solids ignite, you know you're going somewhere for at least 2 minutes. You get to 25 miles high before those booster rockets separate. Now the orbiters are about 2 feet shorter than a Southwest Airlines Boeing 737, can carry up to 65,000 pounds of payload. Originally designed for 100 flights each, we ended up with a total of 135 flights in the entire program. We began to realize that a vehicle with 2.4 million movable parts and an expected reliability of 99%, we would still have 2,400 systems failures on a successful flight. Flying in space will never ever be like getting on an airplane at LaGuardia and going to LAX. These vehicles are incredibly complex, and in less than 9.5 minutes, we will go from 0 to 17,500 miles an hour, 10 times faster than the world's fastest rifle bullet. Wow. The fact that we've done this reasonably successfully over 135 times is a great testament to the folks that work at NASA. Now, the astronauts basically we have the audio.
Not closer because I missed them.
I'll just restart this here. I'll give it a. Our astronauts basically say that they're lucky enough to be in the position that they are, and they really want to give back to the folks. So this here is my good friend, Canadian astronaut Chris Hadfield, who is also the lead bass guitarist for the world's only all-astronaut band, Max Q, who we will be dancing to next Friday at the Johnson Space Center. But he wanted to talk back to not only just Canadians, but the rest of the world, to tell them really how lucky they are to be in the position they are because of our support as a nation.
Who'd have thought that 5 months away from the planet would make you feel closer to people? And not closer because I missed them, just closer because seeing this way and being able to share it through all of the media that we've used has allowed me to get a direct reflection back, immediate, from so many people, that makes me feel like I'm actually there with people more, that we're having a conversation, that this experience is not individual, but it's shared and it's mutual and it's worldwide. Coming back to Earth, I'm looking forward to the reality of it, the smells of it, the sounds of it, the noise of it, the clutter and the life of Earth. Space Station is an outpost. It's right out on the edge of the human experience. It's a very select, tiny group of people that are here making it occupied, making it work. But it's austere. The work is challenging and fun. The opportunity and the future is tremendous. But it's late. I need to go to bed. And I've got work to do tomorrow. This view is magnetic and mesmerizing. But from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and see you soon.
Now, one funny story with Chris, as alluded to in the introduction, I do about 100 talks a year to a variety of audiences across the country. And this year actually will be my 25th, sorry, I didn't update the biography, my 25th year presenting at the SEEK conference in Houston at the Johnson Space Center. And usually I ask folks to silence their phones or put them on vibrate before I do a presentation. But 5 years ago, in the middle of my presentation, a teacher's cell phone rang, which I thought was pretty rude. And she stood up and goes, "Brian, it's for you." Well, she was Chris Hadfield's neighbor. And when Chris found out I was presenting in Houston, he called from the International Space Station in the middle of my presentation. So on speakerphone, we had a nice, intimate conversation for 6 minutes with 300 people in the audience. When he hung up, being on the astronaut friends and family list as their trainers, emailed him right away. And I'm like, dude, you ruined my entire presentation. But my one question is, what were the roaming charges on that call? Because when you actually called over Houston, 6 minutes later when you hung up, you were already off the east coast of India heading into China. But the great thing is we have the NASA Tracking Data Relay Satellite System and no charges from AT&T or Rogers Canada. When we actually look at our astronaut corps, back in the 1960s in particular, the astronauts were all male, all military, and basically we did not have a lot of diversity. But astronauts in the early 1960s all the way through the Apollo program were highly specialized folks. What I actually enjoy about the Space Shuttle program is that we actually had, for the first time, men and women flying in space, people from different cultures, different languages, as well as different countries. In 1978, we opened up the space program to folks from around the world. The International Space Station, for example, this one crew here has our Canadian astronaut, Dr. Bob Thirsk, American astronauts, Russian and Belgian astronauts all working together. Learning languages opens the world to you. You may or may not recognize that on board the space station, the language of the crew is that of the commander for the 3-month increment. So if your commander's from Italy, everyone can learn Italian. Your commander's from Russia, everyone learns Russian, etc. I've been lucky enough growing up in Canada to learn English, French, Spanish, and Italian, and I am trying, the key word is trying, for the past year or so to learn Russian. If you think my degree in astrophysics was tough, Russian is kicking my backside. But by learning multiple languages, I've been lucky enough to travel to 27 different countries on this planet, and you may even find yourself off of this planet at some point too. Now, the shuttle program has actually offered astronauts the opportunity to fly many, many different flights. Flying 7 people up to 10 times a year, astronauts were given the opportunity to fly multiple flights. A good friend of mine and Belinda's, Colonel Jerry Ross from Indiana, has actually flown 7 times in space. Astronauts spend about 98% of their career in highly technical positions, but basically riding a desk. Astronauts nowadays, in a 20-year career, will fly maybe twice on the International Space Station. We are flying 3 to 4 people a year. But now with the new space taxis coming up from SpaceX as well as Boeing's Starliner, hopefully now in 2020 we will have the capability to launch Americans from our own soil back into space, and it will free us to actually do great things. So we're going to use the space station through 2024, possibly 2028, and then we're going to go beyond. So when we look at today's astronauts, the astronauts that were just graduated about 2.5 weeks ago, the new class is what we call the Artemis generation. So these folks are generally not going to fly to the space station. They are being trained to go back to the moon and eventually on to Mars. And the president gave us the goal at NASA to land by 2024. I think it's going to be more around 2028. Congress last week decided that we probably should not build the gateway, that they've been busy with stuff that does not contribute to the space program, unfortunately. So hopefully when it comes out of committee and we move on, we'll be able to build the gateway. But we no longer can afford as a nation, whether it be the Russians or the United States, to go to these places by ourselves. So just like the International Space Station, this is going to be an international endeavor. Japan has already signed on, the Russian Space Federation has signed on, Canadian Space Agency has signed on, European Space Agency. So all of our missions from now forward are truly going to be international. And as we said earlier, the astronauts in the early space program were highly specialized. Now our astronauts are what we call generalized specialists. They need to know a little bit of everything. When you're on the International Space Station, you're keeping up international relations. One day you're actually vacuuming out the filters. The next day you're making food. You're also a space plumber because that waste containment system fails much often. So our astronauts nowadays are actually going to be generalized specialists. Johnny Kim is actually a classic example of the new astronauts. A U.S. Navy SEAL with 3 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan, and basically decided after that, now let's just go to Harvard and get a medical degree, got himself a medical degree, and now he's one of NASA's newest astronauts. Story Musgrave, who flew on all 5 orbiters that flew into space, had 6 different university degrees. These folks are about lifelong learning. I actually love reality TV. Discovery Channel, History Channel, NASA Channel. If I was ever to win the lottery, I would go back to school and just continuously get degrees. I have 3 different university degrees. But one day I want to be an underwater archaeologist, the next day I want to be a volcanologist, I want to be an underwater welder. There's so many different things, and it's truly about lifelong learning. And these folks basically show us what the best of the best is in our nation. Gus Grissom, in the Apollo 1 anniversary, prior to the Apollo 1 fire, said, "We are in a risky business. We hope that if anything happens to us, it will not delay the program. The conquest of space is worth the risk of life." This is unfortunately known as the Astronaut Memorial Week. All 3 of our accidents at NASA happened in the same week over a 36-year period. The Apollo 1 crew was lost in a terminal countdown demonstrations test at the Kennedy Space Center on January 27th of 1967. We lost the Challenger crew on January 28th of 1986, 70 seconds into launch when one of the solid rocket boosters failed. And of course, near and dear to us here, the Columbia crew on February 1st of 2003. As I said earlier, flying in space will never be like getting on an airplane at LaGuardia. A good friend of mine, Tim Gagnon, just recently released his latest memorial patch. And when we actually look at this, there are 31 names from 3 different nations that have actually lost their lives in pursuit of excellence and knowledge. And for the first time ever, at the Kennedy Space Center on the memorial wall, we just added the first commercial pilot to lose his life in the pursuit of space with Virgin Galactic's Spaceship 2. A lot of folks say there's a lot of room left on the wall at the Kennedy Space Center, and that is a little bit somber in the sense of saying that a lot of that space is left blank, because we know that in the pursuit of excellence and knowledge, we will lose more people in the pursuit of flying into space. So we are going to recognize definitely these 31 folks, knowing full well that in the future we are going to lose folks again. Space is a hard thing to do. This here is an internal diagram that we have at NASA that shows you every single flight from the United States, Russia, the SR-71, the X-15, as well as the commercial flights. Every single flight that had a situation where we were within one criticality of redundancy of loss of crew and vehicles. This is a tough, tough thing to do. Every single one of these flights were within that envelope of loss in crew and vehicle. Everything from fire, collisions, docking anomalies, medical evacuations, separation failures. We've been flying people in space for 59 years. Yet 2 years ago, we actually had an American astronaut and a Russian cosmonaut on their way to the International Space Station. This was the 80-some-odd flight to the International Space Station with this 65th crew. And 2 minutes and 45 seconds into flight, one of the solid rocket boosters, or one of the fuel boosters, failed to actually separate from the rocket, and the rocket blew up under those two astronauts. We were at about 48 miles in altitude, excuse me, and to get your astronaut wings, you have to get to 62 miles above the Earth.
Wow.
Nick Hague, the American astronaut, was making his first flight into space, and when they had the explosion, the launch escape system pulled the capsule away from the blowing up rocket. They went to 51, 55, 57, 59 miles in altitude, then on a ballistic trajectory back down to the ground. They landed about 400 miles east of the launch pad, but safe and sound. Now, I in no way endorse bullying or that kind of stuff, but do you think astronauts pull jokes on each other? When Nick Hague, 48 hours after the launch, returned to the Johnson Space Center, everyone in the astronaut office, shook his hand and we're glad you're alive, but you know what? You're not a real astronaut. You didn't make it to 62 miles in altitude. He's like, I had a rocket blow up under my backside. I am more of an astronaut than any of you guys in the office. About 6.5 months later, we fixed the problem, and Nick actually made it to the space station with his Russian commander as well. But we like to say, as we say in the space program, is it's never going to be an easy thing to do, no matter which vehicle we actually fly on. Now, a lot of folks say the shuttle was an inherently dangerous vehicle. All space vehicles are inherently dangerous. Right now, for the past 11 years, we've been flying the Russian Soyuz into space. But here's a heads up, basically looking at the safety and reliability of both vehicles. When we look at the space shuttle, 134 successful launches and 135 attempts, 133 successful missions, 1 failed launch, 1 failed reentry. That gave us a greater than 98% reliability for launch and recovery of crews. The Soyuz in 102 flights had 104 successful attempts, 99 of 104 successful missions, 2 failed launches, 2 failed reentries, and that gave them a 96% reliability rating for their vehicle. So when people say that, oh, the shuttle was completely a vehicle that was a ticking time bomb, something we shouldn't fly on, all space vehicles have those kinds of situations and problems. As we say, it's not going to be like getting on an airplane at LaGuardia and going to LAX. We are going to lose more people in the exploration of space. Now, February 1st, 2003, I was lucky enough to actually be at the launch with the families during the launch of this crew. I had spent 3 years training the crew on the operations of my equipment in space. And these folks, just like the Challenger crew, really were a microcosm of America. Men, women, Jewish faith, Hindu faith, Christian faith, really a microcosm of what our country was, representing everything that is the best in all of us. Now, my experiment was actually part of a package called CBIX. We had flown cancer cells, a program called urokinase studies, not on this flight, but my experiment package was called FINS, Fish in Space. A 5th grade class in Hagerstown, Maryland said, you know, when fish are in water, it's sort of like they're floating. What if we had fish in water now floating in space? We're actually falling, but for the sake of a lack of a science term, we'll say the astronauts are floating in space, but they're really actually falling in microgravity. So we had 30 rainbow trout eggs in our experiment package. After 3 days in flight, the fish actually hatched, not knowing what the gravity well was. They were swimming in complete circles, had no idea which way was up, down, right, or left. After 3 days, they were sort of just flopped in the tank. We thought we had killed them, but just like human beings, it takes about 3 days to acclimatize to the microgravity environment. After about 3 days, we introduced a light source into the actual container, so we would have a flashlight go on at different angles every 45 to 90 seconds. And the fish would actually move their dorsal fin towards the light source. So these 5th graders figured out that fish use their visual acuity or their eyes to track the sun and shiny things like lures, which leads to their demise, unfortunately. They like shiny things, and they use their eyes to navigate in rivers and lakeways, and also the moon as well. Here's my experiment package above KC and Laurel's Head. We had a great 16 and a half days there. It was in the Space Hab module. It was never meant to be outside the vehicle, but during the vehicle breakup, our actual experiment came down, half of it in Nacogdoches, Texas, at Ken's Mini Mart parking lot, which I will be going to on my way to Houston. It's now a Chinese food restaurant, but I still know where it is. This was on the front page of the New York Times, and my boss and I from Instrumentation Technology Associates in Pennsylvania, we knew exactly that our experiment was right there. And to show those students that even though this was a tragedy, NASA allowed us to refly the experiment 3 years later on the 118th shuttle mission with none other than Barbara Morgan, the first teacher going to space. So those students were now in junior high, but we wanted to show them that, you know, that yes, this was a tragedy, but we need to keep forging forward. Laurel Clark is actually from Racine, Wisconsin. I've done a number of talks for her mom and stepdad. Unfortunately, another tragedy in the space program this past year. Both her mom and stepdad were killed in an automobile crash in Arizona. Very, very tough when we look at these tragedies. Also, Elon Ramon's son, who was an F-16 pilot in the Israeli Air Force, also perished after his dad too. I mean, how much can these families, you know, endure? But we go forward. But one of the interesting things with Laurel Clark is her husband, Jonathan Clark, is actually a NASA flight surgeon. And after the flight, he was involved with Felix Baumgartner's drop from a balloon to get back down to Earth safely. Now, this was sponsored by Red Bull. A lot of people are like, oh yeah, this is a stunt. It's, you know, Red Bull doing advertising and stuff. But actually, Jonathan was working on this project in memorial to his wife, was to create a suit that in a similar Columbia event, astronauts could bail out and actually survive from extreme high altitudes. So it was not a stunt. It was basically learning the science of how we could prevent losing astronauts in a similar to Columbia event. This here is in Racine, right on Lake Michigan, just about an hour and a half south of where we are in Sheboygan, Wisconsin. This is the Laurel B. Sultan Clark Memorial Fountain, right in downtown, dedicated to those crew members. And as we say, they really were a microcosm of America. Rick Husband from Amarillo, Laurel from Racine, Michael Anderson from Spokane, Washington, really coming from across the country. If you get the chance to go to the Kennedy Space Center, probably one of the most sobering things I've ever seen in my life is they have the 3 hatches from the Apollo 1 fire, a section of Challenger, and of course you guys in this community know very well parts of Columbia that were recovered in the local area. And it was not only sobering, but it was a great way to honor these crew members. And having trained those crew members, I knew that this is window number 6. Rick Husband was right there, doing everything he could to bring that vehicle back to Earth safely. Over here was Willie. But when I went to the Kennedy Space Center and went into that memorial room, the security guard basically knows the people that have been involved in the program. I just sat there in the darkness and just cried, said a prayer, and the security guard basically didn't come over and bother us. He knew that, you know, we were there paying respects to the folks that we lost. A lot of folks say, you know, were we negligent in the Columbia accident, the Challenger accident? Has anyone gone to jail or been fired? Not a chance. I go to bed every single night since that accident, asking myself, did I make the small incremental mistake that killed my friends? And that is something I have to take with me for the rest of my life, all the way till the afterlife. So here's a memorial video to all of our astronauts that have actually passed away, and this will be the end of the presentation.
We sailed in 1492, looking for a new world way beyond the blue. And 2 brothers took a chance, took us to the skies. They all had a dream that would not be denied. They took that step, they took that chance, they kept those dreams alive, till the mighty moving hands of time made the street of their lives. Thank God, dreams survive. When Edison penned his first design, who'd have ever known how long his light would shine? And all the ones who helped Von Braun take us to the moon, the dreams they dreamed back then are still coming true. They took that step, they took that chance, they kept those dreams alive, till the mighty moving hands of time made the street of their lives. Thank God, dreams survive. These children looking up to me and you, depending on our choices, watching everything we do. One day when we're all gone, may we leave behind dreams that they can follow and pass on down the line.
And I know it's been said hundreds of times as well. Coming back to this community and the communities around us, we want to thank you for bringing our heroes home as well. So thank you for everything you guys did as well.
Thank you, Brian. That was a very moving video, and certainly we appreciate your entire presentation. At this time, we're going to have a couple of our board members, and Marcia Cooper is back there. She's the president of our museum board, and also Belinda Gay is the vice president. These two ladies have been instrumental in the whole 17 years since the disaster, as far as helping our county and helping our community to remember this, and so we certainly appreciate everything that they've done. And they're going to make a museum commentary presentation for us at this point.
Good morning, everyone. That was wonderful. Absolutely. We got a few things that's coming up this new year into 2020, and I want to kind of touch a few things that we're planning on doing. We're going to do a golf tournament. We have a great event coordinator. Y'all all know Pat Smith. She's really good at what she does. And April the 25th, we're going to have it at Cypress Bend, and we're going to need several teams, and sure do need the support. And if y'all play golf, come out. It's a wonderful event, and hopefully the weather will pull off okay for us this year, and we'll be out there hitting them balls, you know. But y'all come out and support it. It'll be a wonderful event. And then May the 7th, a robotics competition. Ellen Mills is in charge of that, and it'll be held right here in Hemphill, and we need close to 8 to 9 teams, local schools and things like that. And y'all, I tell you what, I watch these robotics things. These kids are amazing of the things that they do. Just little things that they come up with to create and develop, and just their ideals. Their little minds are just going so fast. You can tell it, you know, just on looking at their eyes, and they're just amazed at. I'm going, how in the world did they think of that? You know, I'm sitting there going, just little simple things, how to open little areas and how to get from one place to the other, and what the items they use. They don't waste anything out of their projects that they do. And then October the 10th will be our second gala that we do, and a lot of the families come back for that, and we do a silent auction, and we feed. You know, it's a lot of food, and it's always a lot of food. Everything we do, it's always a lot of food. And, you know, it's just that the whole thing has been a God thing for us. I can remember sometimes when, that will be at Fin and Feather. The gala is always at Fin and Feather. It's a local marina that's here in our town, and they're just so good to accommodate us and supply some things for us, and all our vendors in our town and our county is just wonderful here. But y'all just keep hanging out with us. You know, that was one of the first things me and Belinda went down to NASA. I remember when we was wanting to build the museum, they wanted to know about our budget. What kind of budget did we have? Well, we didn't have a budget, you know. Just simple as that, you know. But God provided for everything, and so I'm gonna let Belinda talk a little bit about some of the things. But that's the events that we've got, and they'll be posted on our Facebook. And we got Lane. He's helped us out a lot with the media stuff and everything, and it's just all coming together. And we got a lot of things we're looking forward to do. And you know, we can't do it without everybody. You know, it's everybody's help. It's always been like that. So I appreciate it, and thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, Marcia. I'd like for all of our board members, either of the Columbia Museum or of the Sabine County Columbia Memorial Committee, I'd like for you guys to stand up, because y'all have all been instrumental in helping us to be able to put on our program and to support us throughout the years. It's hard to believe it's been, thank you guys, it's hard to believe it's been 17 years since our world got turned upside down, but you know, we've survived it. We've learned a lot from it. And thank God NASA is continuing to explore and didn't let this tragedy end their program. A lot of things we have today is because of what NASA's doing, and we take advantage of that, like our cell phones and our satellites. There's just so much stuff we have today because of what NASA's doing. Some say, well, why are we spending so much money in NASA? Everything's so expensive. We shouldn't do it. It's a waste of money. But it's really not. We have so much. We're very grateful for all of our support. We get no city, county, state, or federal money. We get some in-kind services from the city and the county. We're very appreciative of that. But as far as funding, the way we do raise our money is by a small donation that people pay to come in through fundraisers we have and grants that we're able to write. So we'd like for you guys to go out, spread the word about our museum. It's a wonderful place. We have a lot of unique, one-of-a-kind items here that if you went to the Smithsonian in Washington, that you wouldn't find some of these items. So right here in little old Sabine County in Hemphill, Texas. So we are planning these 3 big events as our fundraisers. We don't want to try to kill the community with fundraisers every time. Of course, we do need the money, but God's always provided, and we've made it through. So thank you all for your support and for coming. We will have all these events on our website and on the Facebook and all that kind of good stuff. So if you got a golf team, put them together. Y'all come. If not, just come out and hang out with us, because we're always eating. Can't you tell we like to eat? So come on out and help us. Lane, we're very fortunate and lucky to have Lane Lucky. He's upstairs doing our electronics and our programs. We're very lucky and fortunate to have him on board with us as well. And he takes care of our media stuff for us. So we're very thankful for that. And if you guys want to come and have a tour of the museum, it's free all day. We always have a free entry on the anniversaries. And matter of fact, if you come and you decide you can't pay, well, come on anyway. We're going to let you in. We're not going to stop you from coming. But that is how we do get our budget for the small budget that we do have. It's off of the donations and stuff that come in through the door. So thank you all for coming. Yes, Vicki?
I think it was an oversight, but we didn't recognize any of our local elected officials.
I'm not finished.
Okay. Your hand stopped.
Yes.
Your hand stopped moving. So I
Yeah, no. And I probably should have, of course, I didn't get up here, but Daryl, our county judge, is here with us today. We have one of our board members. He is, and my husband back there, he is a judge, or JP, and we have John Bruton. He is our Adult Protection Services personnel or person who takes care of all of our people here in Sabine County. Let me see, who else do we have? Do I have anybody else that's elected officials that I might have missed? It's definitely not we didn't mean to overlook you. We just, we're very grateful that you're here and that you are supporting us in our endeavors. We hope eventually to expand our education department. I want to expand a little bit on our robotics competition. This is will be our 3rd year to have it. And the difference in our competition and the other schools' competition is that when our students, they get here to do the program, they don't know it, but they get to work with, their mentors are NASA engineers and astronauts. So either current or former ones. So they get a blessing, and it's really neat how those engineers and those astronauts and those guys from NASA come in and they just sit down, and like you said, they're ordinary people doing extraordinary jobs, and they're just like us. And our kids that get to come here and participate in that program, they walk away and you can just see the glow on their face. So it's pretty exciting. Even if you don't have kids, y'all come watch them. It's so exciting to watch them in their program. So thank y'all for coming and for supporting us all these years. Stephen, I'm going to turn it back to you unless you have something else you want to say.
In closing, I also want to thank everyone for being here, no matter if you're a visitor or a local. We certainly thank the members of our local media who are here and appreciate the support of the media, also the support of the county. Darrell Melton, who is our county judge, we appreciate him being here, and also our other county guys, John and Roger, wherever you are, and we just thank you. There he is. Thank y'all for the support that you've shown, not only now but over the years, and those of you in any position that you are, as I said, whether you're a visitor or local or interested citizen or whatever, we just thank you that you're here today. Now, I want to invite you, after we're done here, to take a tour of the museum. Brian will be around, and you're welcome to talk with him, and we certainly appreciate you being with us today. But it really was a very interesting presentation that you gave us. So, if you would all stand, and then I'll close this with prayer, and then you can go tour the museum, talk with Brian, get some refreshments, whatever you want to do. Our Father in heaven, I just thank you again that we're able to be here today, and I thank you for the work of the ones that we remember, all that they did in their lives as far as the sacrifices in education and in work and all that they've done. I just thank you that we have people like this in our country that are willing to sacrifice and even go beyond what most people would. Father, I just thank you again for your blessings and for your love, and we just pray that you'll bless the remainder of the day for each of us, and we ask you in Jesus' name. Amen.
I'm glad I came with you.
And they go to the play.
I'm gonna put a light on the bed.
I think you can pull that off, a little LED light in the base, make it blink.
I enjoyed that.
I know it just got to it, it was turned up. Oh, Lord. Did I tell you it's gonna be a
So I hadn't heard the name of the
90, well, bless your heart. That is something else. That's something else.
One of the graduates on that guy.
No, it's too sweet.
Oh, yeah.
It's way too
I have been reading your email now. Always
Yeah. When Miles taught at
I put him in charge.
when they could shuttle, I got to meet this small world, right?
We got it at 150 pounds?
Yeah, that's two people.
Yeah, but we end up.
Well, we need to move out of there. Chad. What are you gonna do today?
So Brian, do you miss using your slide rule?
People cried,
We need to put them so I can
I have one at home. I have one at
Showing the
home.
folks in the light.
oh,
I
you
think I
child.
could still do,
something like that, 8 foot tall.
obviously the multiplication.
No. We got some here.
That's right.
I guess they're in front of it.
I can
Oh,
remember
yeah,
when
it's
takes
just
too much
way
time.
down.
Y'all to help me get it out.
positive you can get
She's
that, or
Addison's
in
from
high school,
Addison,
you get
right.
a 99 in
I think.
physics.
They told us what's
So
gonna
then
cost
it's
to get
actually
fixed.
physics. And what's
Sure you
difference?
made that at 9
That's
o'clock in the
tourism
morning.
budget.
My math teacher was
So,
What will it do?
I'm gonna give it to Braylon before.
I guess,
We'll go on
cause
Monday.
it
physics
opened up.
teacher, we don't have laws.
Did you shut it on top of it?
On the school roof with their textbooks. and
Somehow
stuff.
knew that.
There's
Third floor.
some more
It's
over there.
made for the.
Mimi and Maya's not gonna eat it.
Staying alive, well, that's a good thing. Hey, I have a coughing spell every now and then. I can't shake it.
Physics teacher.
You wanna do that?
Would I get in?
Yeah.
And my math teacher.
Like here, like,
That's just
go
a
in
small
there.
You get
Look,
coffee,
they're
you're
not
not
enjoying.
Had not coughed, they come
Oh,
all
that
day,
was-
and I get down there
Was
and
it
cough. If I get
Was
stirred
that one
up,
that they
you know,
put
a
out
little
there?
hot,
No.
that's the last thing. I mean, it's nearly like.
Yeah.
Well,
Still teaching
yeah.
geometry.
When they introduced,
when they
introduced the concept of proof.
I even did some reading through trying to help with it,
What are
you
you
know.
talking about? Why?
I had to work on
That
these
goes to your
systems
point.
all the day.
Answering
Which
that question,
one?
why? That's when the brain engages.
That's right.
It absolutely does.
I mean, me.
Oh, Laquita?
The only thing
No, not
Yeah.
was word problems.
Yeah.
Train leaves New York
Yeah.
at 60 miles an hour.
But even that.
No,
trailer
that's
has to be
Frida,
done by
the one
a
that's got the leg gas, that's how you did Frida.
But here again, you're
So
asking
their,
a question.
y'all's phone system you walk into,
That's where I was. I love my.
that's Frida.